back with video number 2. I know that this is going to take a while to come out. That's my bad. I actually have classes right now at the moment and I've been pretty busy, so but I did manage to come back eventually, so welcome back. We're just going to jump right into it because I do not have much battery life. So this guy, this little rock, and don't worry, I will actually take photos of these so you can see them up close, but for now, I'm just going to show you them like this. This is an amethyst. This is like exactly what you think of when you think of an amethyst. This is not amethyst in its rawest form, but it is pretty much amethyst without anything else attached to it. It's already been made all pretty for you guys. This is the kind of stuff that you buy in a store. Actually, amethyst is my birthstone as well, so of course I had to get like a nice pretty version of it, but I do have one where it's just like I forgot what the name is. It's like a rock when you cut it, when you break it open, and there's a nice little crystal inside, and the rock outside looks really plain. I'll try to remember what that's called, but we're moving right along. This little dude is a granite. I know that doesn't look like it. That's because it's been weathered to hell. Sorry. I should probably cut down on, so make sure I'm not cursing because I don't know if any kids could be watching this. But yeah, this has been really weathered down. It is, the reason that it's brown is because of just weathering and oxidation. But this is mostly, so the reason it's brown is because most of the less resistant minerals to weathering have already been basically just kind of hammered out by the weathering. So now it just looks like this. And remember what I told you guys. If it's really smooth and really round and it's still holding its shape after this much weathering, it's likely mostly made up of quartz at this point. Probably used to be granite, but it is now mostly quartz. Actually, it probably used to be a sandstone, but you know, it kind of went from granite to sandstone. It's a whole process, and I'll explain that in another video. Pretty much igneous rocks become sedimentary rocks over time. Igneous rocks are like the first form, we should say, right out of the volcano, essentially, or wherever they came from. And then the sedimentary rocks are like the parts that come after, and the metamorphic rocks are the very last form that they could take. Not every rock reaches metamorphic form, though. Good to know. This little guy is another example of a quartz sandstone. Pretty cool. It's been rounded out. Now it's more of like a river rock. Another river rock. Just quartz sandstone. Nothing really special to say about this guy. I've told you guys all there is to know about them. This guy is pretty cool. I got this from a mine. Alright? Like where they do coring and stuff like that. And so they actually let you, I think it's a factory. I can't remember if it was a mine or a factory. But they did coring. And they ended up coring a lot of diorite that we could actually see right here. That's why it looks so smooth and round on the sides. Rocks do not look like that necessarily when they're... Because remember how I said that igneous are the first forms of a rock? They don't come out with a round edge like this. This is evidence of coring. So yeah, this little cool guy looks like a Dalmatian. The way I call it, a Dalmatian rock. I've always thought of it that way. So it's just made up of very mafic minerals, which are the black parts, and felsic minerals, which are the white part. So it's considered an intermediate igneous rock because it has both in pretty much equal measures. So we call this a diorite. This is just a heavily weathered and rusted sandstone. This is like, this is on its way to becoming this guy. This is like on its way. So it's a sandstone that is weathered to high hell. Now how do I know that it's a sandstone? I don't know if I'm going to be able to capture this in this form. I'll try to capture it in the photos that we can put right up here. But there's little parts that you can see are still sandstone that haven't been weathered yet. It's really cool. This guy is so cool. Oh my god. Okay. So this guy is either petrified wood or metamorphic schist. Remember, metamorphic rocks are the last form. Now, the reason that I'm not sure is because petrified wood, or what you think is petrified wood whenever you find it out in nature, could actually just be metamorphic schist. They look super similar for some reason. It doesn't help that petrified wood is essentially just wood that like fell down and didn't really rot away fully, and it started to be replaced by minerals as time went on. Like parts of the wood kind of decayed, were replaced by minerals. So it's rock either way, but it could be, you know, petrified wood, which is really cool. I think I have several samples of that, but I'm not sure. I have to look. Or it could be metamorphic schist, which is just one of the forms of metamorphic rocks that can be taken. I think I'm going to have to explain in another video in the future exactly what the heck schist is and what makes it different from like a more foliated, like more evenly foliated rock like a gneiss, for example. Why it's not a slate, etc. So this is the rock. This is super cool. I hope I can capture it better in the photos. It's just so cool. You can actually see, this is why you never know if it's a petrified wood sample or a schist, because this banding right here makes it look like it could be a schist. But it could also be part of the wood. Who knows? Now, this guy is just a conglomerate. A conglomerate is another sedimentary rock example. A conglomerate is basically like a bunch of little rocks glued together with a matrix that is more round. A breccia is more angular. So those are the two, like, what I would call like granola mix bars, where it's just a collection, like a granola mix rocks, where it's just a collection of different little rocks glued together. Breccia is more angular though. Conglomerate is more rounded. Try to remember that when you're out and about. And again, I hope that this is captured better in the photos. But yeah, you can literally see different pieces of rocks glued together. And the little holes that you see in here are probably formed by like erosion from water. That's my guess, because it's been so rounded and it's very rare for rocks to get this round when they're just weathered by sand. So like by air, that is, or by sand. So it has to be, because there's so many different erosional forces. Again, I'll get into that in another video. Water is the one that tends to round it out the most. And these little holes, have you ever heard of hagstones? Basically, if the hole went all the way through, it would be considered a hagstone. And it was just on its way, but the rock was very strong, probably because of all the silica content. So it didn't quite get it through before I got my hands on it. Now, this little guy is a granite. This is a classic example of a granite. So a granite is actually, let me show you guys real fast. You can probably see all the pink. This is going to contrast beautifully with another rock that I have to show you. All that pink is K feldspar, basically potassium feldspar. That's what makes a rock look pink when it's igneous. Okay, if you see pink things on other rocks, don't necessarily just automatically catalog it away as K feldspar, because it could be weathering or something else that makes it look pink, but it's not actually a pink mineral. But yeah, so the K feldspar in this case is what makes it look pink. And why it's a granite is that's just the way that this is. It's a great mix of a bunch of felsic, like more felsic leaning igneous rocks, like igneous minerals. So there's not a whole lot of orthoclase, which actually makes it look, if I'm not mistaken, orthoclase is what would make a rock more white in appearance, and I'll explain that more later when I get to the other rock that I'm going to contrast with this. There's more amphibole and biotite content in this rock. That's all the little black minerals that stand out amongst the pink. There's quite a bit of plagioclase, the pink stuff. And there's quartz in here. There's always quartz in a granite. Even if it's not immediately obvious to you, there's always going to be quartz in a granite. And then, you know, it just looks really cool. It's a huge sample too. I can't even remember where I got this from. But this is this is not even the biggest sample that I have, okay, of rock. I have so many big rocks for no particular reason. Let's just say that my days in college were mostly me walking around with bags that were way too heavy for me to carry by myself. I got really strong. Especially on those field trips, because if you don't grab the rocks then, you might never be able to see them again. So you have to grab them then. Don't do this if you're really weak. You can ask someone who's stronger than you to carry the bag for you, you know? Work smart, not hard. Now this is just a quartz rock with like very heavy iron staining. That would be all the orange stuff that you see here. If it has that kind of like reddish orange color, that means that there's been significant like iron staining there, oxidation, you know, iron minerals interacting with oxygen. We've already talked about that. Now this one is really cool though, because it would be a normal quartz rock, except you notice that it looks a little too funky to be a normal quartz rock, right? That's because it's got either pyrite or chalcopyrite if I'm correct. That's all the gold stuff. Now, a little history lesson for those of you that do not know. Pyrite and chalcopyrite was often mistaken for gold in the old days. So they call it fool's gold because it looks a lot like it when you don't really know exactly what you're looking for. And a lot of the miners back then just saw gold and minerals shining out at them and they would think they struck it big. Then a whole bunch of people would migrate over thinking, oh, we're going to find gold. And all they find is a bunch of pyrite. It's really sad back in the day. But right now, in this modern age, it's super cool how it looks. So yeah, those are all the little gold streaks, and I will try to get a good picture of this. This rock is just so cool. It's a great sample to have, even if you're not going to strike it rich by having it. By the way, do not ever get into geology if you think you're going to strike it rich. So I just went through the trouble of putting my phone on silent because I got interrupted, of course. If you're doing a video, future tip, do not leave your phone with sound on, because if someone decides to call you at the wrong moment, then you have to stop the whole video. That was very annoying, I'm sorry. Anyways, now this is a rock this is the last rock, and it is the rock that I wanted to compare to the granite. This is syenite. This is another example of like a felsic heavy rock, except it doesn't have K feldspar in it, which is why it doesn't look pink, and it looks mostly white. All that white stuff is a different type of like plage, but it's mostly alkali feldspar. So it's a different kind of feldspar, that's why it looks white. As opposed to like the distinctive pink of the K feldspar. You can kind of compare them. They are both essentially the same type of rock because they're both felsic igneous rocks, but they are not, they just have different feldspars in them. See? Pink, white, pink, white. Now, the black is probably sodium-rich plagioclase, which is like, you know, amphibole, essentially. Like that little black stuff that you see all throughout. This is also a really cool-looking rock, and it's nice that it's less uncommon than like more mafic heavy igneous rocks, which I'll also get into in another video. You often see exactly this combination of rocks in a syenite, like amphiboles and stuff like that. So, and you also probably have biotite in here and plenty of quartz, because it is a felsic heavy igneous rock. I have several samples of this, actually, so I can show you now. Also syenite. Also syenite. Now, you're probably wondering why two of them look like they were a little bit rounded off, like a little bit flat along this edge. It's because they were originally part of this same rock, the two samples here. I just cut them with a rock saw, and so now they're two different parts. And the reason I cut them with the rock saw is because I was trying to figure out what to use as a sample for like more mineralogy based things, because in university they have this really cool class if you're taking a geology course. In my university they do anyways, where it's just like mineralogy, where you basically get to shave down a rock to a very thin sliver. You put it on a microscope slide, and then you basically just look at it through a microscope and see what you can see, and it looks really cool. It is also very difficult to understand what you are looking at if you do not pay close attention in class. So pay close attention to your instructors, because you will regret it later, like I am right now, trying to identify some of these rocks. But yeah, so that's all the rocks for today. I will go ahead and take photos and just post them at the end. I hope I was a lot more organized in the last video. I did all my research to identify these guys as accurately as I possibly can. As you can see, rock ID is not that simple. It may look like it's easier because I'm the one identifying them for you, but if you don't even know what you don't know, it can be very hard to figure out what you're looking at because there's so many black minerals. It could be amphibole, it could be, damn, I forgot the other black minerals. It could be pyroxene. It could be so many things. You could be looking at a mica and not realize it because you're looking at it from the wrong angle and you don't realize that it's shiny enough to be a mica and you can't quite flake it off, so you have no idea. There's so many different things, and then don't even get me started on the amount of like lighter colored minerals that there are. There's just so many things to look at. So this is why it's both challenging and fun, because it is not a simple process to ID rocks, but it is rewarding because at least then you know what you have in your collection, if that's something you care about. If you just want to have rocks lying around and have no idea what they are, that's also up to you. Do what your heart tells you. In any case, thank you for coming with me today. Well, sitting with me today to look at my rocks. I have still a lot more to look at, and I'll just keep doing them in little sections of 10. I decided to do something really cool for you guys, alright? So I bought some diluted hydrochloric acid so I can go ahead and test if some of the rocks that I suspect have calcite, like have calcium in them, that might be calcite or like some other kind of limestone. I'm going to go ahead and test it with the hydrochloric acid. I would not recommend that you buy this at a high... If you ever want to do this at home by yourself, do not buy a very highly potent hydrochloric acid because you could really hurt yourself with that. The most that I'm buying is a 10% one, and even then I wouldn't recommend putting your finger in your mouth if you get it on your hand. It can stain clothes as well, so just be aware of that. So yeah, I'm going to do that for you guys. I'll actually show you the reaction that a calcite rock has to hydrochloric acid. You could also do this with white vinegar, I found out today. So that's a less, harmful version if you want to try that as well. What you will usually see is little fizzling when it makes contact with calcite. So that's how you know that it's calcite bearing rocks. And then that helps you ID better. So yeah, I've pretty much said all I have to say for today. Thank you for coming along, as like I said, for sitting with me, bearing with me as I figure out this YouTube process. And yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below. Any suggestions, because I'm new to the game. And of course, as always, stay curious.